Hey, I see the mayor.
Oh, welcome everybody. Hi, it's great to see everybody. Wow, we've got quite a few people here. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, that's great. Well, thank you very much for coming to our first ever Retail Safety Summit. I'd like to have check-ins periodically, and we'll talk about that moving forward. But really, I really want to welcome everybody. Before I say another word, I'd like to welcome some of our elected officials. We've got our Federal Way City Council President, Linda Kochmar. Hello, Council President Kochmar. We've got Deputy Mayor Susan Honda. Thank you for being here. We also have we've got our police personnel. I really want to thank very much Michelle Roy. Thank you very much for helping put this together. I want to thank the president of the Washington Organized Retail Crime Association, Officer Wickman from Auburn. Thank you, Officer Wickman, for being here and for your participation. I'd like to thank Chief Wong and your entire team, to include Commander Murphy. I see you there, Carrie. Thank you very much for your work and appreciate it. We've got our special operation officers, Officers Lozar and White. Thank you so much for your dedication and work. And we've got our Federal Way Commons Police Officer Jimenez, JJ. Thank you so much for being there. Yeah, he's not actually Thaddeus. It's Officer Jimenez there. And thank you so much for your work in the Commons. We also have council members, our council member Jack Walsh, and I believe we have a Representative Jesse Johnson. Is that right? Yes. All right. Hello, Representative. Thank you. I know it's a busy session. Thank you so much for your participation. Right now, we've got 77 people online. That's really great, and I want to let you know we've all heard about organized retail theft. We've been concerned about what's happening, not just here locally, but regionally and nationally. We've seen the stories coming from San Francisco, from Los Angeles, and around the country about organized retail theft. And it's something that, and we hear locally from people in our community, really about the corrosive effect it has, not only on the businesses that are affected and the bottom line and the concern about safety, but the people that live here and shop here. And when they see that kind of activity occurring, it really makes people feel less safe, and because they are. And when those kinds of things happen and they're tolerated. So I appreciate and applaud everybody that's here. I see my good friend Mark Johnson from the Retail Association. Thank you, Mark, for being here. We also have Becca Martin with the Greater Federal Way Chamber of Commerce. And thank you, Becca, for your partnership. And we have former mayor and long-term city council member, Gene Burbidge. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being here. We've got quite the cast today. So it's important that I don't filibuster and talk too much. All of it is to the contrary. But let's move this on for an introduction to the chief and get on to the important business. I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for your partnership. We're committed. We're going to lock arms with you and do everything we can to help make our stores and our community safer. With that, Chief Wong.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I also want to thank all of you for joining us today. As a city, we're launching a retail theft and safety initiative, which is going to make our community safer. We want to share with you our multi-pronged approach to achieving this goal, which you'll hear some of the details from some of the presenters this morning. With major projects such as light rail and the Commons development, there'll be a lot more visitors and residents living in our downtown area in the foreseeable future. One of the things that we're doing that I want to share with the community for planning for future growth is we're creating a downtown bicycle unit. An 8-officer unit will tremendously enhance the visibility of uniformed officers in the downtown area. These officers will constantly provide pressure to push crime out of the area, which will make the business community and our residents feel safer because there'll be less crime. Mayor and Council recently authorized the police department to increase our staffing by 13 officers. And this is where these officers are coming from. In the short term, while we are hiring these officers and getting them trained, we'll be utilizing officers on special emphasis patrols to provide enhanced downtown visibility and enforcement. And when I talk about downtown parameters for the bicycle unit, they'll work other areas as well, but the main focus will be from 312, that's where H Mart is located, down to 324th, south of the mall, and then 11th Avenue South, which is Safeway, the side street next to Safeway, all the way to I-5. So the 8 bicycle unit with the lieutenant will focus. They'll also ride electric motorcycles as well. We have a couple of those on order and they'll be coming. But that's the parameters. Another thing, and in recent months, we've been very proactive enforcing laws along Pacific Highway South and South 320th, where much of our crime occurs in Federal Way, essentially where much of our businesses are located. So today we're seeking feedback. We're looking for best practices for our retail community to exchange ideas and the continued partnership that'll be essential to make our retail shopping area safer. I know your time is valuable. And again, I want to thank you for joining us. And I know that you'll find the information being presented by the speakers will be informative, interesting. So thank you very much for joining us.
Great. Before we head over to Officer Wickman, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. If everyone could mute your microphone, that would be great. I want to let you know that the chat has been disabled for this meeting, but I was able to drop a few crime prevention resources in there along with the agenda. And then we're also going to hold questions until the end, until after all the presenters. And some of your questions may actually be entered or answered by the presenters. And so I am going to turn it over to Eric, Officer Wickman, President of ORCA, and he's an Auburn officer. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here this morning and to see such a fantastic amount of attendance. Before I get started talking about some of the things that ORCA has been working on over the recent months and years, I noticed that the former president and my current vice president, Robert Nelson, is on the call, and I want to publicly thank him for all the work that he did as the past president. It really did lay the foundation for what we're doing today, and he deserves enormous credit for that. He did fantastic work, and when he did decide to step back, we were quite disappointed, but then quite encouraged when he decided to run for the open vice president seat. And he was recently elected to that. And so we get the benefit of his institutional memory, if you will. So thank you very much, Robert. I wanted to say that publicly. Some of the things that we've been working on particularly over the last 12 months has been to increase the amount of information sharing that we're able to do. We have a platform that is hosted by ORR, and if you are a member of WAORCA, you have access to that platform once your credentials have been vetted. And that is an online resource that allows us to share bulletins and information about organized retail crime, where it's happening, who's doing it, who they're associated with, and what their method of operation is. This is an incredible platform. And again, Robert deserves a great deal of the credit for this because it's a relatively recent addition. We were on a different platform before. It just wasn't working for us. And so we were able to find ORR, who's done a fantastic job hosting to this point. And it's a much more user-friendly platform. So when you go in and you're new and you click on Add Bulletin, it just walks you through and allows you to add what you want and keep out what you don't. And that can get blasted out now because of the ORR platform multi-state. So we have a lot of the Western states that we are also able to send that information to, because this is not just a local or regional problem. This is a I-5, I-90, I-84 problem that spans multiple states. The second thing that I wanted to work on over the last year or so is trying to increase the law enforcement presence within WAORCA. It's a relatively, unfortunately, it's a relatively unknown asset for property crimes investigators. And I won't even limit it to property crimes. I think that a lot of these people are now, especially the professionals, are branching into persons crimes. We're seeing a lot more weapons involved in these organized retail crews, anything from pepper spray to bear spray, which is horrible. And then we're even seeing some of the more professional, more established crews actually carrying handguns. And what we've seen over the past year is that they're not afraid to use these weapons if they're challenged by either law enforcement or loss prevention asset protection personnel. So I don't say that to frighten anyone, but I say that just to keep that in mind. I know that most corporations have a relatively hands-off policy. There are still 2 or 3 large corporations that are allowing their people to do detentions. I have my own personal feelings on that, and I won't express those here. But I would certainly be very cautious when you approach these people. They are not your typical shoplifters. Everyone on the call here should know that already, that organized retail crime is not shoplifting. It is a totally different animal. It is not a crime of opportunity or a crime of personal gain. It is definitely something that is extremely lucrative. And this morning I will be testifying to the Senate committee on a bill that is looking at putting restrictions on the high-end third-party sellers, where a lot of this merchandise in bulk is actually being put out. And so we at Waorca are taking the position of supporting those restrictions, that bill that restricts those high-end third-party sellers. I don't want to name anyone, any of the large corporations, but if you've done any organized retail crime investigations, you know who those platforms are and how lucrative it is. And so we're hoping that the verbiage in these bills is going to put some checks and balances, if you will, on these third-party handlers, and start to kind of restrict the activity and make them more aware when this is going on. I have many examples, if anybody wants them, of cases where we have one that's pretty high profile that involved a gentleman, and I use the term loosely, locally, who was making between $300,000 and $400,000 a month over the last 12-month period. So extremely lucrative, taking anything in from clothing to beauty products to anything he could get in bulk, and then using several of these third-party high-end resellers to actually move the merchandise. And that case has recently been adjudicated. And if you want the details of the case, I can let you know. It started with, very proudly, one of our property crimes detectives in Auburn, and then ultimately ended up roping in the FBI because it was an interstate operation. So we were very grateful to get that person out of the system. It took a big chunk of the business away, but just like with any other high-end crime, somebody else is going to step in and take over, and it's just going to keep going. And I think these restrictions on the third-party resellers are really going to help decrease the demand, and that will affect them coming out and actually being so emboldened to increase the supply so much. So those 2 prongs are what I've been working on. And one of the things that I'm most passionate about is something that both Mayor Farrell and Chief Wong mentioned, and that is partnerships. Waorca needs to grow. It is well represented with loss prevention, asset protection on the corporate side. I would like to see more law enforcement involvement, and my approach with the organization this year is going to be finding ways that we can make law enforcement more aware of what we're doing, how it can help them. It is free. We are a nonprofit. We're not looking to make any money on this. We just want to share the information as broadly as possible and provide assets and networking for both law enforcement and loss prevention. And that's really where we're headed this year.
Great. Thank you, Officer Wickman. And thank you for coming. I know you're testifying in front of the Senate this morning, so thank you.
Yes, and I won't be available for questions, but if anybody has any, I'll make sure that Michelle has my contact information. Please reach out anytime at all. Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, I am next on the agenda and I'm going to be really quick. Just reintroduce myself, Michelle Roy. I'm a crime analyst and the crime prevention program coordinator for the police department. I've been here since the department started back in 1996, so over 25 years. I'm a civilian employee and one of my assigned duties is as the business liaison for the police department. And so I recognize many of your names, talked with you, come out, done security surveys, talked about crime issues. I want to make sure everyone knows if you have any questions after this or need to reach out to any follow-up for any reason, I put my email in the chat, as well as a bunch of crime prevention resources. You might hear the officers mention a trespass letter. If you need to know more information about that, definitely reach out to me. And for the businesses, I do business watch meetings, present crime prevention presentations. My most requested one is active our workplace violence prevention, active shooter response. So I get that, I present that probably a couple times a month. So again, reach out to me. And we are now going to turn it over to our special operations unit, to Officer Losfar and Officer White. Talk about Pacific Highway South and the downtown patrol emphasis they've been doing. Go ahead, Officer Losfar and Officer White.
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so I'm Officer Losfar, Blake Losfar, Federal Police Department. I'm assigned to our Special Operations Unit. This is my partner, Doc White. Recently, in the last few months, we've been tasked with what's called our downtown core emphasis. Primarily, just like the chief explained earlier, where the downtown core kind of is, we kind of expand a little bit out of there at times too, when businesses need our help addressing certain issues. We work various hours. We've started as early as 1 o'clock in the morning. We do random patrols through the downtown core, addressing homeless issues, transients, drugs, loitering, so forth, and try to clear that out. What I've noticed since we've been doing these special emphases, a lot of our, what we would call, excuse the term, regulars, transients or homeless, that we've become extremely familiar with are now gone. And then I've also noticed a huge influx, especially in the last probably 3 weeks, of new faces. When speaking with them, a typical response is, I'm from Seattle, I'm from Auburn, I'm from Lacey, a few out of states. A friend dropped me off, I took the bus here, asked what attracted you to the Federal Way, and again, a typical response is, I'm passing through. But this transient issue, I believe, is fueled by drug addiction. So most people who come in contact are addicted to drugs. We work with several resources, including, we rattle them off here. We got Union Gospel counselors. We work with them. We try to meet with them every Wednesday to go out and offer resources. Valley Cities, behavioral health, mobile crisis, a few. And I have only had one person take me up on these resources ever. And unfortunately, that person I'm thinking of, she went away, she was gone for a few months, and then she came back. She was very healthy when she came back, but she degressed rapidly and went back to the state she was at before. I'm kind of getting off track here. So Officer White, did you have anything to say?
Well, I think we should touch base on our trespass issues and what businesses can do to help us get people away from their businesses in the early morning hours. Officer Losfar and I both know that the majority of these people are there, doing drugs, buying drugs, selling drugs, and we have several hot spots in town that we try to hit several times a day. We've noticed that when we do make contact with these people, they don't want to have anything to do with police. So it's come to the point where now when we pull up after we've contacted them a number of times, they just pick up and walk away. The problem we're having is they just turn around and come back after we're gone, however long later. And when I say hot spots, I mean, these are businesses that we've made contact with that advise us that these people come in off the street, grab a bunch of candy, chips, beer, whatever, and run. And when they try to stop them, they become aggressive. They don't want to get hurt. So they just let them go. They have no other choice. We found that when we pull into these businesses and we spend time there, sometimes you'll see us with our overhead steady lights on, just showing that we're there and making a presence. And we've been told by, especially like AM, PMs, 320th and Pack Highway, Safeway, that that's making a big difference. And we're trying to do as much of that as possible. We still have a lot of other issues in our job that we have to deal with on a daily basis, but we put in as much time as we can to try and take care of that situation.
And add to that, we're a 14 unit, so there's only 4 of us. There's also Officer Ben Chang and George Green, who are also assigned to the U team. And we're stretched pretty thin right now, and we're putting in a lot of time and working the best we can.
So,
Great.
Michelle, if I could maybe chime in and
Yes.
add a couple of things.
Go ahead.
Yeah, as Officer Losbar said, there's 4 assigned to the Special Operations Unit. This is the because the positive impact this particular unit is having within our police department, within our city, we are going to enlarge this unit to 8 officers. And Officer Losbar and White made a recommendation for us to. Typically, we have like bicycle or electric bicycles, but they made a recommendation because geographically our downtown area is pretty large. So they made a recommendation to go to electric, enduro type motorcycles. So we have 2 on order. We're going to pilot those 2 motorcycles, electric bikes, very stealth, but they could also, get on Highway 99. They can get to areas pretty quickly. But if it goes well, we're going to add additional. But moving forward, you'll clearly see more officers in the downtown area. We want to create an environment that if people are coming into our downtown area, into our city to commit crime, they're going to learn quickly that we have visible officers, and that's not an area that you want to commit crime. But I want to thank these 2 officers because these 2 officers plus Ben and George Green, part of this, they've done tremendous work. Also with our homeless encampment initiative. We don't allow illegal encampments within our city. You will not see tents on sidewalks or any of our streets. If it's on private property or public, we just don't allow illegal encampments. And I think that has served us well in managing overall crime in our community. So with that, Michelle, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have Officer Jimenez. He is one of our 3 mall officers. He'll be talking about shoplifting and organized retail crime. All right, go ahead, Officer Jimenez.
Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my current assignment is a mall resource officer at the Commons Mall. This is my 2nd tour of duty there. I'm here to talk about what the 5 elements or what we need to establish probable cause to effect an arrest for a theft or shoplifting. I'm not going to go into the detail of the theft RCW, but these are the elements that we're looking from the loss prevention officer or manager in their report, so we could establish probable cause for arrest. The first and foremost is the initial observation. When the suspect gets in the store, either by physical surveillance, meaning the floor surveillance, or by CCTV. Is he carrying any bags? Is he pushing a shopping cart upon entering their store? The second one, obviously, to go back, is the constant surveillance. Constant surveillance, and that means also that to continue either by CCTV or by physical surveillance. And the third element is the selection and concealment of merchandise. How is the merchandise concealed, whether under a jacket, inside a pocket, or under a blanket in the cart? That's one of the very important elements. And the fourth one is when the suspect pass the register, man and operational point of sale terminals. And the last one is exiting the store or the point of no return, where the EAS towers, that's when the loss prevention call it the point of no return. That shows that they haven't attempted to pay for the merchandise they concealed or they're carrying, exposed. So when the loss prevention stops suspect, if the suspect cooperates and walk with them back to the LP office, then they can do their own online thing. The city of Fairway has a program called Doors, which is a retail theft online, where they could file their own cases. The officer don't have to respond so long as they cooperate and they have a good ID, a valid ID, meaning a state ID or a driver's license. The officer will only get involved when the Doors cases are sent to us, and we check that, make sure all the elements are there. And if any correction, CCTV are needed, then we communicate directly with the loss prevention manager or officers. Then we issue the citation with a court date. And that's been going on for a while with our Doors program. Officer Blake Lossbar started that when he was assigned to the mall. And I'm going to end my presentation with a positive note. Target is working with a case right now where the suspect impacted the regional Target area for about $85,000. I was working with Tukwila detective and the regional loss prevention for Target, and we're able to successfully file a case for organized retail theft. Unfortunately, sometimes, it takes a while, and it takes a lot of cooperation and collaboration with other police department and loss prevention for us to group the cases together. So I'm going to talk a little bit about organized retail theft, like Officer Wickman brought up earlier. It's not your normal shoplift. They would have a getaway car waiting outside the door, and they would use weapons, bear spray, pepper spray. And obviously, when loss prevention tried to stop them, they back off because they displayed a weapon. But on a positive note, we were able to prosecute the suspect, and hopefully he'll be in jail for a little bit. Thank you, and you have all a nice day.
Great. Thank you, Officer Jimenez. That's a great story. All right. Our next up is Commander Murphy. He will be giving an update on the shoplifting stings that we've been recently doing. Commander Murphy.
Hello, I'm Commander Murphy, and I'm new to this unit, so I'm starting to get to know some of the names I'm seeing on the screen here. I look forward to meeting more of you. Something that we've done in the last month and a half is we've done a few sting operations at some of the bigger stores, like we've done Home Depot, Safeway, and we have a couple of different things that we can do. We can do a sting operation, which is focusing on apprehension of these people that are stealing from the stores. And our main focus on those is trying to get those organized retail theft suspects off our streets. They're the ones that come in and push out the whole carts of power tools at Home Depot, that type of thing. And they're not doing a home improvement project. They're selling this stuff at other places for profit. And another thing we can do is more of a high profile. Officer Losfar talked about it earlier. We at Safeway, we had cars out in the lot with their lights on, and we're just there to deter the criminal from even coming in and trying to do the theft. So those are two different operations that we can do. The sting operations, the apprehension operations, those are more targeted towards our larger businesses because they do take quite a bit of staff to do it. We take 5 or 6 officers up there. We team with loss prevention with the stores in order to have that constant observation of the person when they walk in, when they walk out. That's when loss prevention notifies us. We're outside typically with an officer insight on the surveillance cameras as well. But that way we can grab this guy as he comes out the door. And we've had some success with that. It's something we would like to do more of. And I would encourage you to get a hold of Michelle if it's something that your business is interested in doing. It's not something that we can throw together in a day or two, so it needs a little bit of planning. So don't expect to call on Monday and have it done on Tuesday, but we can do stuff. We just need a little time to plan it, and we'll get with your loss prevention people as well, so we can have everybody on the same side and everybody's on the same page. But it's definitely something that we can do, and we want to do more of.
Great, thank you so much. Yes, I put my email in the chat, so if anybody needs to reach out to me, definitely. So now we're on to the roundtable discussion. And before we head into the discussion, as we've been talking about, shoplifting, organized retail crime is a real issue for the city and the region at large in the Puget Sound, actually probably across the whole nation. So we want to strengthen our partnership, renew certain partnerships. I know it's been many years since I've chatted with some of the businesses. And how we'll kind of work the discussion is if you can raise your hand and I'll call on a person, and then unmute yourself, let us know your name and what business you're from, and then let us know your question, your comment, your strategy. So we want this to be back and forth. If a business has a certain crime prevention strategy, shoplifting strategy that they have had recently that they would like to share with other stores, we would love to hear about it. With that,
Michelle?
Yes.
I wanted also, Council Member Erica Norton has joined us as well. I just wanted to recognize her. So
Great.
thank you, Council Member, for being here. And we also have our City Prosecutor, Jen Castleton, here as well. So I just want to, and we're lucky to have her. She was a King County Prosecutor before she was a senior deputy there. And so we're very fortunate she's our lead prosecutor. So she's here to answer questions about that as well.
Great. Yes. Thank you. I'm just going to go with the first person on my screen, Mark Johnson.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Mayor Farrell and members of the council and other participants. I'm Mark Johnson with the Washington Retail Association. We have about 4,500 storefronts throughout the state of Washington, including many that were just mentioned here by a number of speakers in the good city of Federal Way. I just wanted to bring an attention of another bill, and I do very much appreciate the president of Waurika, Officer Wickman, highlighting the online fencing legislation that's being heard in about half an hour that both he and I will be testifying on. But there's another bill being heard on Friday. And in the state of Washington, we're one of a few states that do not have the definition of concealment within the definition of theft as a crime, and was described by Officer Jimenez down at the Commons. You have to physically wait for that individual to leave the facility, and then unfortunately the chase is on, and you have folks running through parking lots with cars and other dangerous things happening to both the officer, the loss prevention person, possibly injuring a customer, or even the suspect. So allowing for apprehension and being tried for a crime before they leave will actually lessen the injury rates and other dangerous things from taking place and de-escalating within a store. It would be just another tool. It's not the panacea by any stretch of the imagination, but it would certainly help out with the issue. That's House Bill 1656, prime sponsored by Representative Dan Griffey. I would encourage the city to take a look at that legislation and also the online marketplace legislation 5533. And if they can lend their support through their governmental affairs representative in Olympia, that would be fantastic. We would encourage that. So again, thank you for having this. I think it's been very helpful so far, and really appreciate the focus and look forward to continuing the discussions. Thank you very much.
Great. Yes. Thank you. Great information. Next, John Swoboda. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm new to this Zoom stuff. We're talking about downtown. downtown Federal Way. But what you're actually doing is pushing everything out to us that are on the fringes of Federal Way. And when I call for an officer because I have a shoplifter, I get very little response. I mean, we're talking hours, like 4 or 5 hours, if anybody even shows up.
Commander Murphy, did you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I can try to help out there. If you do call and you have that lack of response that you're speaking of, I would encourage you to call back and ask to speak to the supervisor, find out why it's taking so long. Typically, there is something else going on that is a higher priority at the time. And I can't give you any specific examples because it's different every time, but feel free to give a call and ask for the supervisor to call you, and we can find out what the issue is.
Yeah, and I've spoken to you in the past, and it's just, it's almost to the point that we as an independent small business have to take things into our own hands. That's what it's turned into at this point. I hate to say that we don't feel safe anymore. And we're not safe. It's not that we don't feel safe. We are not safe. My staff is not safe. We're not safe.
John, what's your Jim Farrell here? What's your business? Where are you at?
I'm North Shore Ace Hardware.
Okay.
At 356 and 21st.
Okay. And
we are not safe.
Sorry?
We are not safe. We actually have had to go to the point that we have armed employees.
All right, well, we'll follow up with you. We'll make sure that we sit down with you and make sure that we get you. It's our job to make sure you are safe, not just that you feel it, but that you are, and we'll work on it, okay? So thank you for being here today. I know that, oftentimes people vote with their feet, and, this actually, you could tell when people aren't happy, they don't show up. So actually, I really appreciate you. We appreciate you showing up today, letting us know where you're at, and it's our job to turn that around.
Okay.
Okay, and we've got your, we have your, obviously you linked
Yes.
on here. Michelle, do you have that contact?
I do have his contact info.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
John.
Great, thank you, yes. Let's go, the next person I saw was Tom Severance.
Yes, thank you. Tom Severance. I'm with Ulta Beauty. And first of all, I want to say thank you for hosting this meeting. It's definitely a step in the right direction. We very much appreciate it. My question is more kind of on the tail end of some of the processes. I know we're talking about prevention and some things we're going to do to try to prevent the criminal activity. But many of the subjects that we're seeing who are targeting the retailers in Federal Way are also targeting businesses in other cities. And Ulta having stores throughout the entire region, we've really noticed it's been a struggle to get cases aggregated, meaning different agencies coming in together to try to investigate the suspects that are hitting multiple locations. And, we're really struggling in getting in contact with the detective in Federal Way PD, even when the most significant cases are occurring in Federal Way. So I guess I'm asking, is there any formal plan or formalized process by which Federal Way PD is going to work with other agencies, or is there a formalized process to aggregate these cases with other agencies so that we can, we don't just want them trespassed all the time, which is what we're kind of seeing. We really, in these major cases, we're in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. We'd like to see, criminal charges as opposed to them just being trespassed off the property.
Michelle, can I just add, from a statewide view, we're in discussions with the Attorney General and other stakeholders on creating a statewide organized retail crime task force to hopefully do exactly what you're suggesting, and that's to better coordinate between agencies and both state resources and local government resources on that. So absolutely, I think that's needed, and something we'll be working on probably post-session here.
And I would also add, we do a lot of regional sharing. As a crime analyst, one of my other duties is as a crime analyst, I share information with our regional partners as well, Auburn, Kent, all around the Puget Sound. We actually meet monthly and we share bulletins back and forth, my inbox every day. And I am aware, I know Alta out in Maple Valley gets hit very hard. I do see that, and we do share it with our officers, at least from an information sharing standpoint. I did want everyone to know that we all, officers, detectives, myself as a crime analyst, we're always talking with our with one another and sharing information, because crime doesn't know boundaries. It crosses all boundaries. But as far as investigation, I wanted to see if Commander Murphy had anything to add.
Like I said in the beginning, I'm on my 20th day in this unit, so I'm starting to build my internal database of people to talk to, and I would like to get with WAWRCA. I think that would be a great resource to do exactly what Tom is asking, to make sure that I know what's going on in Tukwila and what's going on in Maple Valley and all the hot spots in the county and Pierce County as well. But I would like to build that relationship so we can do more of that.
And then one last thing I would add is I've been here for over 25 years. So I think it was probably around 10 years ago. I actually hosted loss prevention every month. And I brought in speakers. That's kind of when Wazorka came up, and the leaders of Wazorka did a great job. And then they started doing the regional sharing. I think the pandemic slowed that down a bit, but definitely something I think we'll be working towards.
And Michelle, I just wanted to add, and Tom, just want to let you know that it was one of your employees who came to speak at a city council meeting that actually about the incidences, the organized retail theft at Ulta, that prompted my visit to your store with me and my staff. That actually was the whole genesis and how this summit got started. So it was because of what was happening at Ulta that we really kind of got the ball rolling here. And I wanted to, thank you and your employee for being engaged in this. I think it's very important.
Great, thank you. The next hand I see is Jerome Harris. Go ahead, Jerome.
Yeah, thank you. First, Michelle, and it might just be me, but in the chat, I can't see anything. So I can't get your contact or anything. And aside from that, I'm Jerome. I'm the district loss prevention manager for TJ Maxx. TJ Maxx is part of TJX, which is also Home Goods and Marshalls and Sierra and HomeSense. We do have a task force that's also on this call, so I'll let them talk about that. But one thing I just wanted to say is thank you, Mayor and law enforcement, for fighting through the challenges that you guys have had, and we appreciate it. And I want you to know that I know some of the hiccups sometimes are, does the retailer show up for prosecution? Do they supply some of the stuff that Officer Jimenez talked about in their reports as far as the elements? And we do all of that. And we also have a task force that's been pretty active. They're our national task force, so they're across the country, but we have a couple of people specific for the Federal Way area that can go mobile on subjects. So they have followed subjects to locations. Sometimes they get called off by dispatch, tells them to stop the follow because there's not a response, or we get a response and we appreciate that. So it's part of that. Again, so it's more of a statement because I had some of the same questions about the aggregated cases. As you guys know, they're hitting Federal Way as kind of the center point. They're going everywhere. And I have from Federal Way south to Portland and over to Eastern Washington. So we see them all over. And in the same breath, in our lot there on 320th, I think we share with Alta and Home Goods there. There's plenty of stuff in the parking lot as well. Drugs, we've had an OD death recently. There was a stabbing recently. And so our associates who work in those areas are also very concerned about safety, as are we. That's my number one goal, is to keep them safe. So I think it's, to everybody's point here, is kind of all a joint issue: drugs, homelessness, regular shoplifting, ORC, fencing. all of that. So whatever we can do to support, we also have resources we can lend to law enforcement, but whatever we can do to support, please, please reach out. And Michelle, I will reach out to you as soon as I have your info. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll just give you my email real quick. It's Michelle, MICHELLE.Roy, ROY, at cityoffederalway.com. I'm hoping some of you can see the, I dropped 3 crime prevention documents into the chat. And one of them is what is suspicious business. I do want to encourage everyone to call. If you see suspicious activity, cars, drug activity, call our non-emergency. If it's a crime in process, call 911. We definitely want people to call because that's how we know where the issues are. I look at calls for service. I look at certain crimes. I'm always communicating with our command staff, what is up, what is down. There are certain crimes we tend to focus on more, like robberies, persons crimes, but we look at all crimes just to see what's going on. And the data of calling 911 is actually very helpful. And so let's go on to our next person. I see Representative Johnson. He's the next person I have with a hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you, Mayor Farrell and city staff for hosting this meeting. It's very important. I did want to also clarify the bill that Mark referenced. There's also a House version that did get heard in Consumer Protection and Business yesterday. It passed, and I'm hearing it's going to go to the floor next week. So the retail theft bill. So that's really good. My question was around like corporate policies for some of the larger businesses in our city. I recently went on a ride along in Bonnie Lake, and one of the issues that law enforcement ran into was Home Depot and Walmart there had corporate policies that prevented not only their staff from intervening, which makes sense because of the safety issues, but also told law enforcement not to go after the individual that stole from the store. And so I'm wondering, like, how can we intervene in some of those corporate policies that actually prevent some of the folks that are doing these crimes that also do it over and over repeatedly from coming back. And I guess that could be directed towards anyone that may know about that issue.
Yeah. Is anyone who corporate has? Go ahead.
Maybe somebody from police perspective, we're not aware of any businesses or corporate businesses that don't want police intervention. Many instances it's coordinating with loss prevention or they don't have staffing, so we can't do a sting, but that hasn't been a problem that I'm aware of in Federal Way, not wanting law enforcement involvement. But anyways, I just wanted to share that portion of it.
Hey, Michelle, this is Joe Lakey with Walmart.
Hi, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just kind of respond to the last question. From a Walmart perspective, since we were brought up, we do have a policy that protects our associates. So for us, kind of like as Officer Jimenez talked about, we have to, there's certain elements we have to achieve before we can go out and effect an apprehension. But we do have a, basically it's a hands-off policy, and we are not allowed to go past the edge of our sidewalk. But if we do notify the police department, we are notifying them for a reason. We do want to assist or have you guys assist in making that apprehension and or arrest and recover the merchandise and have charges filed. So I don't know if it was specifically a Walmart in Bonnie Lake or if that was Home Depot, but maybe we could talk offline, Representative Johnson, to see exactly what we can do a little bit different.
Thank you so much. That answers my question. It was really the officers actually apprehended the suspect, and they asked if Walmart wanted to press charges, and they said no. So they decided to let him go. But I think it was more out of, they knew the person, they knew that she was struggling or whatever. There was more of a story behind it, but that was what the officers there in Bonnie Lake, that's what I witnessed when I was there. So.
Great, thank you. I would also like to add, Joe Lakey is the president of our Safe City board. I'm not sure if many of you know, but Safe City is actually a nonprofit. That's all the cameras and the information sharing that we do among retail businesses. So if anybody's interested in joining Safe City under retail business, that's www.safecityfederalway.com. And it's great. It's information sharing, but it's incumbent upon, it's kind of like what Orca has. So it's a little bit duplicate, but it's a great resource too, but it is incumbent upon the business to post alerts about what's going on after they've called 911. So thank you, Joe.
Michelle,
Yes.
maybe I could say one more thing regarding State Representative Johnson's comment. That does occur in Federal Way too. It's not uncommon for a business to call shoplifting, and the officer does detain the person who stole the item nearby. And then when we want to do a show up, have the employee come look at the person, make sure it is the right person, or do you want to prosecute? It is very common for the business to say, no, we don't want to prosecute. We just want the person trespass. So that does happen, but we would encourage, we want accountability. Only way to deter the person from coming back to steal again is to hold them accountable. So the business community here, if you call and an officer is detaining, you should, and I'm suggesting that, yes, please assist us. Let's hold that person accountable. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Let's go to our next person, Don Hayward. Go ahead, Don.
Hi. Thanks for the invite to the meeting. My name is Don Hayward. I'm the division supervisor for Winco Foods. I've been involved with the store on Southwest Campus Drive for Federal Way for about 18 years now. And I just want to speak to a few things. First off, on September 9th, one of my loss prevention officers was shot in the chest, simply escorting a disruptive person out of the store. I want to thank the police department for responding as quickly as they did. There's no doubt that they saved his life. He has a bullet lodged next to his spine, but he is returned to work recently. That has prompted us to make some changes with the escalating violence in Federal Way. We've put our loss prevention in body armor. A lot of people involved with loss prevention know that we still go out and physically detain people. A lot of times when we stop shoplifters, we would love to have them prosecuted, but we know that the officers are going from call to call to call, and we know that nothing is going to be done. So over the last 20 years, we backed off from prosecuting to just asking for a trespass. We're trying to basically maintain a relationship to where when we need the police and we really need them, that they'll respond. We don't want to give them more work than what they need, because we know that there's not going to be any accountability in the state of Washington, unfortunately. Several times when we call, we will hear that, there's no probable cause. By the time that we're able to show the video to develop that probable cause, that person's gone. They're running away. They're driving away, and the police officer's hands are tied. So I've been doing loss prevention for 25 years, and I can tell you from my perspective that it's, we're frustrated. The employees are tired. We're an employee-owned business. We're not on we're not on Highway 99. We don't get the extra support. What we tend to see is problems are pushed to us. So we're just trying to keep a grocery store running, and the employees, not just loss prevention, the employees are scared to come to work. So I just want to make sure everybody understands the concerns that we have. We have a patrol that we're paying $100,000 a year for. We have a tower that records video. We are doing everything we can to deter the issues. We have a staffed LP department. And a lot of these guys are veterans. They're military veterans, and they're scared. We are pulling guns off people. The police officer will show up, and we are told to give that gun back to somebody. So we're in a loss prevention office taking a handgun apart just because we're handing it back to somebody that shouldn't have it, doesn't have a concealed carry, that's committing a crime while it's concealed, and we're handing it back to them and saying, please don't shoot us. Please, understand we're just doing our job. And so we're frustrated. It's very frustrating time right now. So, but I do appreciate you having this meeting, and I do appreciate the Federal Way Police Department. There's no doubt that the responding motor officer saved my employee's life, and so thank you.
Thank you, Don. I would still encourage you to call 911, have officers respond. Lieutenant Murphy, did you have anything to add, or Chief?
I think he addressed Representative Johnson's question real well there too. A lot of the reasoning behind loss prevention, having those no contact policies with shoplifters, is because of what happened to his employee. They're bringing guns in, they're bringing weapons, bear spray, and to avoid that physical contact. I understand their reasoning behind it. It doesn't always help us when they can't go hands-on, but I definitely see the reasoning behind it. Perhaps there's some work that can be done in that area as far as giving them a little bit more protection legally from the liability, as well as the dangers they could face.
Can I maybe respond also?
Yes, please.
So I'm Jennifer Castleton. I'm the prosecutor, the chief prosecutor for the city. So obviously what we have jurisdiction over are misdemeanors. And I know a lot of what you all are dealing with is more of a felony level, and the King County Prosecutor's Office makes its own decisions about how they're going to proceed on those cases. But I do want to be clear that we've always taken a really active role in terms of proceeding and filing charges on cases where there is probable cause for theft. So, the situations where people say, oh, we don't want to prosecute, I also want to make sure that you all are aware that we deal with cases kind of on a case-by-case basis. So just because a person gets referred for a theft, and maybe they have a lot of other things going on those cases, we can refer them into our therapeutic community court. If they're kind of just really facing struggles, we'll treat them very differently than we will treat someone who has a persistent history of theft. Those people we take a hard line on in terms of seeking jail, and we seek accountability and actual consequences for real, because I don't think they're going to change their behavior with some, small intervention. The other thing I will say is that, I obviously, Mr. Hayward, don't know about the specific situations you're talking about. I have definitely gotten cases where people had no concealed carry permit. They had a concealed firearm on them when it occurred, and I've charged those cases. And I've seen them where the officer does, in fact, take the firearm. So obviously situations are all different, but that is something that we would always look at. And I do seek to actively prosecute those cases, especially where there's any kind of a firearm crime on a misdemeanor level that's associated with the theft. So I want you all to be aware of that. Certainly, if you've got any questions or anything, I'm always available to also, talk about what our policies are, what we've done, and how we try to address them, at least on the misdemeanor prosecution side.
Great, thank you so much. On to our next person, hand up. I see Council Member Jack Wash. Go ahead, please.
Yes, two questions. First, as just was alluded to, the misdemeanor cases are handled by the city prosecutor's office, but the felony cases, which is the biggest problem, what kind of cooperation are we getting from the county prosecutor? Are they taking effective measures to prosecute? And then secondly, after that, one of the previous speakers talked about the challenge with probable cause being required to detain suspects. What kind of impact is that having, that requirement from last year's bills, having on actually enforcing the challenges with organized retail crime?
I know Officer Jimenez files with felony cases with King County. Have you noticed any barriers with filing?
No, ma'am. Obviously, the threshold amount of felony cases that we can file, obviously, we're going with the King County Prosecutor's Office guidance. But if we have a solid case, like I mentioned earlier with a target case and with the collaboration of other police department and other detectives and loss prevention officers, the prosecutor's office are very helpful in for us to successfully, send some, felony cases to them. And also I want to mention with our municipal prosecutor, Jennifer Castleton, she is very helpful in all our misdemeanor cases. And in certain cases that, we send her an email saying, hey, this is a prolific shoplifter. We need to go aggressive in this suspect. She's, she's very helpful in, in successfully prosecuting the misdemeanor cases in federal way. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else from the PD want to jump in about felony cases?
Yeah,
Officer White?
Michelle, I can jump in a little
Okay.
bit. Just to, over time, prosecutor's office just doesn't have the capacity to prosecute all the felony cases that are coming through in King County. They're backed up 250 murder cases, just trials there, just in that arena. So yes, they've taken steps over the years, first time offense, felony crimes, property crimes, not to prosecute those cases and do deferrals. So it's been heading in that way for a long time. In fact, RCW has certain threshold for a felony crime, but King County Prosecutor's Office has their own threshold. So it's actually higher than what the state, threshold for a felony crime is. So they've worked over the years to trim or eliminate cases. They just don't have the capacity. They don't have the budget. And that's been communicated to, police CEOs for a number of years now. So in fact, some of our declines start off with, we don't have the capacity to prosecute in some instances. So that is true. And yes, with the retail theft and so forth, there's multitude of reasons, but yes, it is more challenging for us today to apprehend shoplifters because we have to have probable cause. And there's certain crimes people run for, certain crimes they don't run for, but I can tell you with shoplifting, 99% of the time, the suspects just keep running or they'll get into a car and flee. So most people don't cooperate when they get contacted. They tend to run. So it does create a little bit more challenge for law enforcement to develop probable cause. And when we're responding to a call, it is dynamic and all the information isn't always available to us. And you're right, sometimes we have to contact loss prevention and it's more reactive. The person is gone.
Thank you, Chief. The next person I have is Bob Darrigan. Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, thank you. I'm representing Ernie's Fuel Stop on Pacific, which I call the Strip. And I've been going there and volunteering. I opened the building up. Again, I've been there for over 20 years. So I've seen an increase in illegal activities, but I've also seen some good action from our two officers, Officer Lasvar and Smith, who's taken ownership in that area and it's made an incredible difference. Now, what have I seen in the store? I've seen people come in with an attitude that I own this. It's mine. No one's going to do anything to me. We keep a bat in behind the counter. We've had people jump the counter and punch employees out and steal from them. Increased problems. And the problem is, this scares a lot of our customers away. And fortunately, the police have responded quite expeditiously when we've called them. The only problem we had was one day in October when I had my car parked outside. And I won't go through the details how this fellow got the keys to my car, but I was doing something for it. Anyway, I won't go there. It doesn't matter. but he was driving away with my car as the police officers were driving up for another issue, and they couldn't pursue because they had to have a report, a case report from me. This individual drove away with my car, caused another crime. He robbed a store not too far away. So, and in the meantime, 48 hours later, I got my car back and it was destroyed. The individual even tried to set it on fire. All right, so whatever we did to give people the right, more rights than we have, has to be changed. It just have to. And the police, I know a number of them. The police officers are trying to do the best job they could do, but they're frustrated because of the limitations the law has on them to take action. This has to be changed. And it's, I don't know, somebody's saying there's a different interpretation. Well, then let's clarify that interpretation so you're protecting the people and not the criminals. Because you know, when we're soft on crime, you know who does the time? All the innocent people, all the innocent businesses that are breaking their butts to try to make a living. Come on now, we got to do something about this. And by the way, this is a great forum. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Did anyone want to address that, Chief or Commander Murphy?
No, I want to thank Mr. Darrigan for working with us and acknowledging our officers, Special Operations Unit, who've been making a really positive difference in that area. So I'm really sorry about you losing your car. I know that most people can't afford to lose their car. I recognize that. And you, in fact, you speak for a lot of people. We're about 120 vehicles being stolen in Federal Way monthly now. And that's significant. It's more than doubled. And so I understand your frustration, but we deal with our residents every day. And to some residents, that's the most expensive asset they have. It's devastating. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief. It looks like I have AP Team 2571. Is that Joe again? Did you guys have another question? Go ahead.
Yes. I'm Damian Ellison. I'm one of the asset protection associates here at this Walmart. And my question for you is there anything more that we can provide when it comes to to streamline our calls? I guess you could say any kind of additional information or input that that the PD needs from us when it comes to respond. I mean, when it comes to calling in and getting a good streamlined response, because we often call in various types of vagrancy more so than some of our shopliftings, as we're able to kind of get out in front of those shopliftings. But we typically have people kind of out on drugs or just completely unhinged in the store, and I think those kind of sometimes get our signals crossed when it comes to the calls that we're putting in.
Is this at the North Store or is it the Super Walmart?
It's at the North Store. We're right by the transit over here.
North Store.
1900 South.
Okay. Officer White or Losfard, did you have any advice of the unwanted people at the North End Walmart on South 314th?
I can chime in there, Michelle.
Okay.
Here,
Go ahead.
sorry, sir.
Go ahead, Blake.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? So as far as stress, I encourage everybody to keep calling 911 for everything. Anytime. A lot of people don't call 911 thinking, oh, it's not that big of a deal, that the police don't need to be bothered with it. But no, we do. That's our job, and that's what we want to do. So I hope that helped there. So, but call us. So, I mean, and we recognize, I know it's been said earlier, sometimes it might take a while for us to get there. I always explain, I use the analogy. When you go to the ER and you have a heart attack, you're jumping straight to the front of the line. If you go in there, you need a couple of stitches, you're going to be there a while. But call us, it's important. So thank you.
Michelle, I'll chime in here. So if you're just calling 911, Valleycom, prioritizes calls based on what else is going on in the city. What I would suggest to you is if there's a particular time where you have the same individual that's causing problems, then work with our special operations unit. Just let them know so they can do the proactive work in advance. And if you want to do a sting operation, we could do those type of things where we can schedule things. But when you just call 911, I just want you to know sometimes during peak times, there are a lot of calls coming in and the dispatchers and call receivers are prioritizing the calls, but we want to be proactive with you. So I hope that helps.
And to add to that, when you do call, make sure that you give a good description of the behavior of the person, not just we want this person to leave. If they're threatening employees, that can increase our response time or decrease our response time if we have a little more information about why you don't want them there.
And I just want to jump on what Officer Losfar said to keep calling 911. I know sometimes it does take a while. We do have to prioritize, but if everyone stops calling 911, then we won't know what our peak times are. That's information, it's data. As a crime analyst, I look at that as data. So I encourage everyone, keep calling, keep reporting crimes. Even if you feel like it's not going to go anywhere, we need to know. We don't want people suffering in silence. So let's go on to our next person with their hand up, Kirby Evans.
Hi, thank you. I just want to expand on something that Don Hayward said. He and I work together. I am the loss prevention director for all of Winco Corporate. We are headquartered over in Boise, Idaho, and we're fortunate over there. We're not on the West Coast. There's some things that are a little bit different that you guys are all experiencing that we may not have, happening at that clip over in Boise. But I will say that there is a strong partnership between Boise PD and the retailers groups, and what's happening here today in this effort to forge ahead and work collectively is something that it might seem a little bit gloomy here as some folks talk, and what Bob had to say is a very impassioned perspective that is shared by a lot of retailers. A lot of employers right now are adapting policies to the lowest common denominator, and that's as a result of state, local policy changes and legislation that puts us at odds with our communities in terms of enforcing different laws. What we're trying to do is not be a burden on our local police departments, and that's a corporate philosophy. Our policies and our interactions and our attempt to involve police in our encounters with the public are limited with that in mind. Obviously, we understand the hierarchy of the 911 system, and if we make a call, we're making it with the intent that what's going on is something that's unmanageable to us. But with the pandemic and with this different escalating tensions that exist in society right now, the retail setting is kind of this new place, this gathering place where people of conflicting viewpoints and perspectives on all things come together and they interact with each other. Unfortunately, we've gone from making sure that kids grow up understanding that there's consequences to their actions. Don't take a candy bar. The minor petty thefts that used to occur have escalated to ORC. They've escalated to violent interactions with criminals who are coming in to prey on businesses. But as this thing kind of takes this slow degradation into where we find ourselves today, it's not long before this stuff spills into the streets and it lands on, the front porches of our residents and our employees and our communities. So we are definitely at a place now where we're keeping, the safety and security of the business and prioritizing that over all else. Theft is something that happens and we respond to it and we react to it. And our partnership with every police department, especially Federal Way, to know that you guys were doing this today, it was important for us to join in. So there's several of us from Winco here, particularly because of our encounter, not with a shoplifter, but with just a member of the public. The story Bob told about people climbing over the counter and taking things and asking, or not asking, but acting as if it's theirs to take, that is a societal issue that we're all trying to, interact with in a way that's that's promoting a positive change. But I wanted to share one personal sentiment, a perspective outside of Federal Way particularly, but something we are seeing as a business right now is that the citizen is taking it upon themselves to intercede one way or the other. There's a lot of charged emotions when it comes to enforcing the law and interacting with criminal activity, but we are seeing things spark off at an alarming rate with the engagement of the average citizen who witnesses what's going on. So this thing is kind of at a tipping point, but we've had folks engage our employees, both loss prevention and store employees, in support of a criminal committing a crime. And we've had our customers, you know, there's states that we operate in, such as Idaho and Texas, where, you know, you have to assume most people are carrying a weapon. We've had customers get involved and take it upon themselves to hold criminals at gunpoint as they're committing a crime on our property. So we don't want to be a headline in the news. We don't want to do anything that leads or lends to that. But a lot of the policy decisions that you're experiencing and seeing, and even Representative Johnson mentioned some things that he saw, those are being dictated as kind of a reaction to the operation across the entire organization. This isn't necessarily just a Western Washington thing, but we are adapting policies to keep everybody safe, to maintain that line that we hope to not have to retreat further behind, but also it's effectively becoming the lowest common denominator. And so corporate policies are being dictated by that, and safety will always be paramount. But unfortunately, our tolerance for criminal activity in our setting is under siege by whether or not we have the bandwidth within our community to get that support. So I advocate wholeheartedly for what's going on here. This meeting probably, you know, will foster and spur some great conversations and hopefully some positive change, but have it become an ongoing thing. Over in Boise, there's a group of officers who have taken this as a cause, and a lot of folks who travel the 84 corridor into Idaho leave the western states and find themselves getting apprehended and prosecuted in Idaho. So it's a proud thing for them, but I think that there's hope for all of the areas along the West to, you know, kind of band together and work in that same spirit. So thank you everyone for your time. But yeah, the partnerships, we're not competitors. The retailers are not competitors. We are very fortunate to have the support we do from our police departments. And I can speak for Winco loss prevention, but I believe all retailers believe that the police support is you know, it's our duty to make things as easy as possible on them. So Walmart just made a comment about how can we streamline the operation to make it easier. That's a shared spirit amongst us all. So thanks everybody.
Great, thank you. Thank you for those comments and that perspective. Our next hand up is Louis Parent. Go ahead, Louis.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm with Trader Joe's, and we've kind of actually learned a lot during this pandemic when we were really limiting people coming into our store. We really saw our theft go down because the people weren't going to wait in line to come into our store. And since there was only a limited people in our store, that definitely we saw a huge decline in our theft and also drug use in our bathrooms. But now that we've, you know, reopened, it feels like it's pre-pandemic area. And I'm just wondering what's being done around the bus terminal to maybe deter people, because my employees and myself were kind of worried about with the light rail opening, that's just going to bring more people in. And right now that's where I feel like the drug use people are the ones that are coming in the bus. The theft people are coming in their cars. And I've worked at like 8 or 9 Trader Joe's in this area over my career, and this is probably the most unsafe store I've worked at. And it's just really disheartening because I really want to feel safe at my store. And I feel that with what's going on, and now that like, again, like stores are reopening and people are coming out again. It's kind of that pre-pandemic state again. So I'm just wondering, like, what's happening like around the bus terminals, and then I think also one other question I had too is, we were always told to call like the phone number rather than 911. Is it better to call 911? So those are kind of my statements and questions.
Calling 911, I definitely, anything in progress, call 911 for. Anything lower priority, we have kind of gone to the 10-digit number, the 253-835-2121 is our non-emergency that goes to our 911 dispatching center. You'll get the same person, but they do prefer that. Maybe if you think a car might be stolen in your parking lot, that would be a non-emergency. But anything, a shoplift happening right then, you see sort of any criminal activity, definitely a 911 call.
Okay.
As far as the bus and around just the nuisance activity around that, is SOU still on, or maybe Commander Murphy want to address that? Officer
Michelle, I can talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know, Mr. Parent, as far as the transit center, we have officers sign there 10 hours a day. So Pierce County Transit actually hires off-duty officers from Federal Way to be present there. And that's made a huge presence, a positive difference since we instituted that a couple of years ago. Yes, we are planning for the future. And I made a kind of opening remarks. One of the reasons when we made this presentation to council was to create an 8-officer bicycle, motorcycle unit downtown to push crime out, to have them be highly visible. This is all in part planning for 2024 when the light rail comes to town. Also, the Commons property, they want to build a significant number of housing on their property as well when they develop it. So there's going to be a tremendous growth in the downtown area moving forward. So that's one of the things, that having officers there, we want to be proactive. We don't want to always respond to crime, but by pushing crime out, clearly we believe it's going to have a positive impact. But in the interim, we're hiring officers on special operations, and we're putting 2 officers in that downtown shopping area, 7 days a week on a regular basis with council approval for us to do that. So hope that helps. But with A-Line bus coming, yes, we have people coming and going. We are the far south end city in King County. So yes, people do come, they come off the bus and they're here for various reasons. And we've had robberies where, they commit a robbery of a grocery store and then they get on the bus, A-Line, and we end up arresting them in SeaTac because we'll catch them on video getting on a bus. And then that's how we see which bus it was. And then we track them that way. So yes, we have people coming in. So hope that addresses the question.
Well, and also, wait, I just wanted to say too, I like the idea of the bicycles and the motorcycle. Like, I would really like to see some of that presence in our area, just because I agree. I think if there's, deterrent, that definitely helps. Like when my employees, if we're see someone that's doing something and we kind of just are watching those people and there's 3 or 5 of us on that person, they typically walk out. But we also are concerned about the safety factor too. So yeah, I think anything that we can do to deter a lot of these things before they even happen is, I think, the way we want to go.
Yeah, I really want to thank your staff there too, partnering with us and supporting our officers throughout the year. I know they provide, food for us during holidays and stuff. So we really appreciate that. I want you to know that I'm in there 2 or 3 times a week with my wife. So I'm providing undercover, coverage for you, just so you know.
Okay.
Well, and I do want to, Michelle, if I could just jump in here for 15, 20 seconds, is that, there is a great deal of focus on the Pacific Highway corridor and 320th, but we hear Mr. Swoboda about the outlying areas of, you know, the 356th, you know, down there at that end. And we're going to be following up. I've already sent the email. We're going to be following up with you. But on the other end of town at 272nd, I've been in communication with many communications with Mr. Bopla, who owns the ARCO, the AMPM there at 272nd and Pacific Highway. So we want to make sure, and I want to let everyone know that there's a commitment, not just to the downtown core, but the entire, the entire city and the entire length of Pacific Highway in our city. Okay, Michelle.
Great, thank you. Next, Lindy Goodley.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I am the Senior Property Manager for a Celebration Center, SeaTac Village, and Pavilions too. So I have quite a bit of real estate. We have 24-hour security on property at all three centers. And over the last 10 years that I've managed those properties, we have had increased crime. Last night, we had 2 major break-ins at Celebration Center. Lots of windows being broken, and I need to partner with the police, and I do it with the special ops team and Michelle, and work out what my officers, my security team can do to help support your team, because it is getting crazy out there. And I just need, like I said, you know, just a better partnership, probably some kind of a meeting to make sure that our teams are doing what your teams need. Like Louis mentioned, Trader Joe's is my tenant, Ulta's my tenant. We've had a lot of issues at Big Five, DSW, a lot of the anchor tenants where it's grab and goes, lots of break-ins, lots of cars being broken into. And I want to be able to do what we can to help support your team. So anything we can do would be awesome.
Definitely. Lindy, I got your contact information, so I'll reach out to you for sure.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. And then next we have Chelsea Tower.
Hello, thank you guys. My name is Chelsea Tower. I am with Ulta Beauty, and I just wanted to offer, up some solutions to Chief and Mayor possibly. So one thing that I know that Wickman's not on the call anymore to jump to testify, but one thing the Auburn Collection has done is we know that a lot of our ORC groups are using stolen cars, or specifically cars without license plates. So what the Auburn Collection does, and this seems like something that could be done in our, by our security at the Commons and at Celebration Station, would be that we are the security guards are on the lookout for these cars. They're going to be backed in, have both plates removed. And if you look inside, sometimes you see just piles of stolen merchandise. So what they do is they take a picture of the VIN number, or they call it in, they see if it's stolen. Officers will try to respond, which I totally understand. It's a triage thing. But with that, they've apprehended multiple ORT suspects. They've recovered a number of stolen guns, a lot of stolen vehicles, and it was a very successful program to deter ORT suspects out of the Auburn Collection. And I think it's something that can be done in other areas. Secondly, Ulta, we're only probably reporting 10 to 15% of what actually goes on, because we don't want to be a burden to our police, and we don't have LP in the store, so we would have to have store staff call and file police reports, which is just too time consuming away from our legitimate guests. But I noticed last year we had about a 60-day period where everything got very quiet at Ulta. And I thought, wow, we're having some emphasis patrols or something is really working. And what it actually was that a methadone clinic was temporarily closed down on 3/20th. And that's really what seems to be driving the crime on 3/20th. So I think that's something that the city council and, mayor should be aware of, because the numbers back it up. Thirdly, I think that we're having a major issue with getting our cases referred. And that's what my colleague, Tom Severance, had mentioned, is that we need a contact of who will file our felony cases. As ORC investigators, I know I'm not the only one on the call that could speak to this. we have these people identified. So we know who they are. They've hit multiple stores, or a lot of times Federal Way is the #1 victim, but we do not have a contact because for a detective, we needed a detective to kind of wrap it up and give it to DPA Mike Tabor. So I know that the Commons has their emphasis officer do that, but our other businesses don't have that. I would like if we could set up something where once a case hits a certain dollar threshold, that we would have the commitment of a property crime detective to take it, because I have cases that, get it to 50,000 and I can't get a referral to charge it when they're identified. And taking that kind of approach, just to put in perspective, excuse me, in January 2019, 7 people were shot in downtown Seattle, if everyone remembers. Before those guys shot up downtown Seattle, they stole from the Ulta and Federal Way worth $30,000 over and over and over again. And we had him ID'd and we couldn't get him picked up. Had we had that opportunity, 7 people would have been shot. So these crimes are always connected to bigger people crimes, to bigger, gang issues. So I think the emphasis will really pay tenfold to keeping the community safe. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I'll reach out to you, Chelsea, about the process of how to get those reports started with an officer and then over a detective if needed, or if maybe the officer sometimes can do it. I'll check in with Officer Jimenez and see what the best practice is for that. And that was my last hand. I did have one email that I'll just read. It's from Rick Ware. I can't remember where he's from. It says criminals behave in very rational ways. They understand risk and reward. Given the increase in crime in our area, what has changed? We're doing a lot of talking about how to treat the condition, but what is the root cause? We all see the news where big cities are experiencing the product of soft on crime. Shoplifting and drug use is not even a crime anymore. Businesses in our area are closing because of crime. How do we solve this? I think the summit is a good first step. We're getting towards, we're just at 11:01. Encourage everyone to call 911, report your crimes, have an officer take reports, assist in getting statements, video, and then just getting the process going. I've received several emails so far, people wanting to meet, and I'll be contacting everyone. Some want to have a more regular meeting, so I'll be looking at that. I have started an email list group, and I guess I found out that I have chat, but apparently none of you can see my chat. So go ahead and just email me. Again, my email is Michelle, MICHELLE.Roy, ROY @cityoffederalway.com, and I'll add you to that retail list group. So any follow-up, I'll email out the handouts that I thought were going out on chat. I want to make sure those who want to participate in our trespass letter program, I'll send that out, just sign it. It's good for 3 years. Scan it, email back to me. It's great. That gives our officers just one more tool that they need. It's 11:02. Are there any last minute comments, Chief, Mayor?
Hi, Michelle. Sorry, jumping in. This is Jawan Bapla. I just want to say thank you to Jim, Mayor Jim, thinking about the whole city, not just for the downtown, because we are the taxpayer too, and we pay the tax too, right? You're pushing the crime to other side the cities. I know you guys can clean the downtown, but what the other streets and city. So please, we need the police as well as too.
Yes.
Once again, thank you, Jim.
And thank you everybody for being here today.
Yeah,
thank you
because
for
last
Michelle.
last year we got 2 shootings, 2 gang wars, stealings, everything. And this is I'm just talking about only my location, not other locations. We got 2 shootings within 2 weeks last year, as you know, right? So once we talk to you, things start getting better for a month or 2 and then go back to again, because we don't have enough police. We don't have enough patrolling this side of the city, please.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We very much appreciate it. This is really very important, and it's the first of many to come. So we'll talk about, maybe we'll do this quarterly. And Michelle, great job. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, officers and Lieutenant. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate the president from the officer from Auburn. Thank you very
Officer
much.
Wickman. Yeah.
Thank
Officer
you.
Wickman.
That's right. Thank you.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you. Have a great day.